Let's look at some of these self-help gurus, and we're going to distinguish what's just completely cringe, what's not as cringe, and then what is the gospel in a biblical time.
So when did you learn the language of the world? And you early on you speak of the shepherd boy recognizing that his sheep didn't have to be awakened all the time, that there was a rhythm, there was an energy, there was a flow to things, and they started responding to that. And he realized that, the hawks in the air, the sheep, that everything around him had its own energy, its own flow, its own language. When did you start to learn that?
I think that when I start paying attention to life.
When you start paying attention to life.
When I understood that life or the universe was not turning around me. When you're a child, you think that only you exist.
Right.
Right? And one day I was by a orange tree, and I had the sensation that I was alive.
Oh my goodness.
Now there's some decent stuff in here, right?
Yeah.
And then it's just like a bunch of nothing, a bunch of funfunities.
A lot of nothing.
Right?
The shepherd boy and
the shepherd boy and the sheep. And so when you hear Oprah say things like energies and flows and the universe, and then we do a video talking about how the fastest way to develop more skills and to be faster and to work better and more efficiently is by getting into flow state. I'm empathetic to how people can say, this sounds like self-help, mumbo jumbo, new agey stuff.
Especially when she gives advice like this.
Especially when she says stuff like this.
3 times, but I know I thought it at least 1,000 times. I would say listening to your life as it whispers to you first, so that it does not have to knock you upside the head with a brick or come crashing down on you as a brick wall, is one of the greatest principles of life.
Listen to the whispers. And then we also have this.
Go ahead.
I could understand that it really was because I was grounded. I've done was doing and continue to this day to do the consciousness work. I work at staying awake. And being awakened is just another word for spirituality, but spirituality throws people off and they think you mean religion. When I was hiring people for my company for OWN, when people would come in, I'd say, tell me, what is your spiritual practice? And literally would throw, people would go, well, I'm not religious. Or I said, I didn't ask you about your religion. I asked you what's your spiritual practice. What do you do to take care of yourself? What do you do to keep yourself centered? What do you do to the... And, one woman started crying. That's not the person.
Wow. Wow.
So life whispers is one of the best principles to live by.
Staying awake.
Staying awake and grounded.
What is your spiritual practice?
Yeah.
Now, this is where it gets a little less cringe. Tony Robbins, a little less cringe. Now, we're not going to ignore the fact that he basically does like the equivalent of a church revival service at his massive conferences that he charges thousands and tens of thousands of dollars for. But this is like less cringe.
I train my nervous system by starting every morning. I do this process to change my body. And I think of one at a time, a minute each. I see and feel something in my life that I'm really grateful for. Wow. Now, I do little things and big things. So you don't have to have a giant thing to be grateful.
We relate to that. Prayer journal.
Prayer journal, gratitude.
Yep.
The difference is we give thanks to God. Being grateful is important, but it's just like, what are you grateful to? Right?
Think of 3 things I want to make happen, and I don't sit there and beg for them or pray for them. I see them as done. I feel them. I celebrate them as done, because when your subconscious mind believes it's done, it makes it happen. So
now we're sliding into your subconscious mind in manifestation. I see them as done.
This is yucky.
So half of it is like, oh, that's not bad advice, but then it's like you need to see things as done, because if you visualize. Now, I'm not saying there's not like athletes don't benefit from visualization, but to see things as done and then think that they're all like your brain has already made it done. This is new. This is the new age woo-woo.
if you have children, there's 3 skills you want to give your kids, and you want these 3 skills if you want to succeed for the rest of your life. First is you have to be able to recognize patterns. It won't matter what the jobs are, won't matter what the business is. If you can recognize patterns, you have an edge. Things look like chaos until you recognize there's a pattern to things. If you can recognize patterns, you can change your life, because once you recognize patterns, you get the second skill. You learn to use patterns. Getting yourself to do the things you don't want to do. It's called discipline, but discipline's a heavy word. What it really is just creating a new pattern. Once it's a habit, it doesn't take discipline, it's easy. If you understand the patterns, you recognize them, and you can use them, you have real power. The third skill is to be able to create patterns. You want to recognize them, use them, and create them. The most successful entertainers, the most successful business people, the most successful musicians, they create new patterns. They build on what they learn from others. That's what you're doing in this business.
Well, not bad,
Yeah.
right? It's very Atomic Habits based,
Yep.
right? That's straight out of there.
Even searching through the stuff, it was like, there was stuff where it was like, oh, he's actually giving really good advice. There's other ones I didn't bring up.
Right.
That was giving really, really good advice.
Right.
I was like, oh, that's solid. But it goes back to, it's like good advice minus pointing back to the creator.
Right.
The
Right.
reason, the purpose
Right.
behind it all makes it shallow.
Right. It's good advice with removing the source.
Yes.
It's good advice with, even though that first video we looked at said, when you were a child, you thought you were the only thing that existed. All of this is still positioning yourself as the center of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And because we don't want to have God in the mix, we, or rather this stuff, just replaces God with whatever you want him to be. Your life, the universe, your source, your spirituality. And so I'm not saying he's trying to remove the source. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that is pragmatically what's happening.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm not saying he is or isn't trying. I'm just saying when you disconnect people from the source, when you disconnect people from the creator, because if there is a creator, which sounds like Oprah and Tony Robbins will probably say there is a God, well then that creator, if you're not a deist and you just feel like God set the boulder in motion and then checked out, that creator then gets to say what his creation do and how his creation behave and how his creation live and what parameters they have. And then that creator also gets to dictate how you are to engage with said creator. So I think that there is the disconnect, because self-help is just that. It is ultimately you and your power and in your might helping yourself. And a lot of the good stuff, at least, is counterfeited from the scriptures. So Augustine said all truth is God's truth, and because all truth is God's truth, basically all people should try and learn as much as they possibly can about as many topics as they can. Christians should try to learn as much as they can about as many topics as we can. Go watch our Dave Chappelle video on that. So if that's the case, if all truth is God's truth, that means that the good stuff is just is really from the source, but it just removes God from it. Mm-hmm. It's no different than AA, for example. AA was initially a Christian practice, straight out of a church, and it was working. But then over time, to make it more mainstream, they removed the elements of God. And then God can be whatever you want it to be. God can be the universe. God could be a rock. God could be your imagination. God could be consciousness, Christ consciousness. You are one, right? God could be whatever you wanted it to be. And so I think that's the issue, is that there's some truth in this stuff, but there's also some complete nonsense and woohoo and just mumbo jumbo. Now, here is the difference, I would say, between what we're talking about and what a Dave Ramsey teaches, and what a John Maxwell teaches, and what a John Acuff teaches, and just self-help stuff, is that usually, not always, but in all their material, there is some sort of connection back to a creator.
Yeah.
Overtly or directly or indirectly, depending on the context they're in, right? And I think that's key, but I also think it's key to understand that God in his infinite wisdom created a world for us finite beings to function in. That's true, even if people aren't connected to the source. Meaning, if you take Dave Ramsey's financial advice, even if you're not a Christian, it's still going to work for you.
Yeah.
If you take a trainer's advice on working out and eating better, it's still going to work for you, even if he may not even be applying his own advice. Mm-hmm. Right? Like the truth, and God's ways are good, and God's ways are what they are. And I think we try to compartmentalize and we try to say, well, this is self-help and it's not good. And we were talking about this earlier. I think the crux of the issue, and I think why people are triggered, is twofold. One, because I think people don't want to be confronted with the reality that they have some responsibility and some work to do. That it's easier to blame the system. It's easier to blame the cabal that's controlling the universe and pulling the strings. It's easier to blame your situation because of other people, and then just slide into, well, they crucified Jesus and the apostles were all martyred, so I guess my life is going to suck because, hey, that's removing the fact that was in a specific context. And if Paul or Peter landed in 20 24 in this context, with this access, with this ability, what would they say to us? Peter, who was a fisherman, Paul, who built tents, was a small business owner. Well, how would they view what we're in, right? What would faithfulness look like to them in this context? So I think there's a real struggle people have to not want to be told that they can and should change. That's Christians included.
The weird part of it is that Christians don't want to be told that they can change and they can get better. And so, and then they label it like a heretical theology. They label it New Age because they want to believe that they can just sit back and God is going to take care of their entire life. Non-Christians will go super hard into self-help in an attempt to replace God because they think they are the center. So they're like two opposite extremes, which is like non-Christians replacing God by saying they are able to help themselves 100% of the time. And they're just not. They're trying to do these things without the source. And then not all Christians, but a sect of Christians would rather believe Jesus is coming back tomorrow and I'm going to go bury my talents and I have no responsibility because the world is against me, Daily Wire vibes, right? And so then when they hear that a center of the line biblical approach to self-help, they call it New Age heresy. Yep. And so neither are beneficial or helping you. Obviously, loving Jesus, knowing God, and making him known is going to be more beneficial for your life in the long run. But if you're stuck now, it's not because of the cabal.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, again, look at passages like this. This is 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 10. It says, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. If anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides. So in all things, God may be praised through Jesus. These aren't like one-off scriptures. Like this is, if you read your Bible, this is all throughout the New Testament. This is in the Gospels. This is in the book of Luke. This is in the passages, the writings of Paul. This is consistent. Let your ambition be to a quiet life, working with your own hands, so that outsiders speak well of you, so that you will not be dependent on anybody. Like this is all throughout it. And so yes, I think you're totally spot on. Now here's the flip side to this. And we saw a comment like this. I don't know if you have it pulled up.
I do.
Or you screenshotted it. This is the flip side of this, which is really a bummer. When I saw this, or you told me about this comment, it says, like your content and topic, but the wrapping on this felt like an advertisement, and I was waiting for you to offer me a free online webinar to learn more. Could have been the music, or it felt very edited or mechanical flow type, but what I do know is just how I felt. The flip side of this is that people have been sold so much BS nonsense with regarding to how they can change, that when we're making videos and there's nothing at the end of this funnel,
just scripture.
There's literally like, I just want you guys to love Jesus, love his word, get into a local church, and do well in your personal lives. Why? Because if you do well in your personal lives, you're going to have healthy, stable families. You're going to have margin in your life. You're going to give more to your church. You're going to give more to nonprofits. And if I could be the person that people look back to, the way I look back at Dave Ramsey now, if I could be that for somebody, that's the W. I'm not doing it because I'm going to get rich. The money always comes as a byproduct of value anyway, right? So the bummer part about a comment like this is that this person probably has such a foul taste in their mouth by all the in my garage with my Lamborghini nonsense, that we make a video literally giving people one of the best pieces of ways to improve your skill set, to get better at your skill set, and they're expecting a sales pitch. They're expecting a sales funnel. There's no sales funnel.
There's no sales funnel.
There's no sales funnel. This is me as someone that's about to turn 40, looking at my audience, knowing that a lot of you guys are struggling, and a lot of it is because you may have not made great decisions. You may have gone into debt. You may have not developed a good skill set. You may not have any value in the marketplace. And saying, hey, these are the things I wish somebody said to me when I was 20. I'm about to be 40. These are the things I wish somebody said to me when I was 20. I wish somebody was giving me this game, at the very least getting me to think on an abstract level like this about my life, and tying it into scripture. That's it. Like, that's the agenda. There's no other agenda here.
And it just goes to show that like these concepts that can all be brought back to the Bible have been hijacked by influencers, gurus that remove God from it.
Right.
But not only remove God from it, but are also trying to make like millions of dollars off of it. And so they do things like, you know, tarot and new age. And then they create little tarot shops where you go in and do the thing, or they have these seminars. And I'm saying all of these seminars are awful. I'm saying they have these seminars, you pay a couple $1,000, you go, you get some motivation, and they might actually share some like really tactful, important points, but weave in new age practices, manifestation, law of attraction that can slowly actually get the Christian weaseled out.
Right.
And then, well, especially the Christian will slowly begin to think, oh, I have the gift of discernment. I know that this law of attraction stuff is new age nonsense and heresy. So I'm actually going to get everything I learned in this one video, everything I heard from this one speaker, and be like, this is absolute garbage. This is nonsense. When in reality, it's like, no, there's actually biblical truth there in the first place, but it's packaged and it's sold and it's upsold. And so then it becomes like, I was expecting an advertisement for a webinar when it's like, nah, it's just read the Bible and it's free.